nervous system, right? The nervous system is divided into three. You have your central nervous system, which is your brain and your spinal cord. You have your peripheral nervous system, which is all of your extending nerve endings that come out from your spinal cord and go to around your body. And then you have your enteric nervous system, which is in your stomach, in your guts area, your gastrointestinal area. The peripheral nervous system has loads of subdivisions, and then the brain also has an extension of 12 nerves called cranial nerves. So you can see here, you've got your nervous system, the central nervous system, the peripheral nervous system, and then the peripheral nervous system has all of its sublayers. And these two here are extensions of the enteric nervous system. Then here you have all of the different cranial nerves, the 12 cranial nerves, which are the extension of the nerves in the brain. So autonomic nervous system connects the enteric nervous system to the central nervous system, right? And you can see the enteric, and it connects up. So your enteric nervous system is often referred to as the second brain, and it controls your gastrointestinal action and your behavior. So everything that goes on in this region, that's all controlled by your enteric nervous system. It's complex and interconnected sensory field, and it's got hundreds of millions of neurons, and they all sense things from the outside world. It acts independently, and it doesn't require any instructions from the brain. Your enteric nervous system is similar to the central nervous system because it uses similar information processing circuits, and it releases similar chemicals. And your gut alerts you when things around you in your external world are wrong or off, through chemical information being translated into electrical information and detecting your energetic environment, which is all your gut feeling. You can't see it, but you just know you shouldn't be here, right? You actually have the wiring to detect the wiring outside. Now, so with your gut, you have layers in your gut. If you were to take a tissue sample of your intestine and then look at the layers of that, bearing in mind this is a thin, and they're even thinner, and everything is microscopic, you would see this, which are the layers. So you have the sublayers are referred to as plexuses, right? You have the submucosal plexus, which is here, and you have the myenteric plexus, which is here. And they're just a bundle of nerves, right? So your submucosal plexus connects your glands and stimulates hormones and enzymes to be released. And your myenteric plexus stimulates for gut movement. The plexuses are stimulated by your autonomic nervous system. So when you see autonomic, it just means automatic. So gut microbes communicate with you through the production of molecules. Molecules are two or more atoms that are chemically bonded. Water is a molecule, oxygen is a molecule. Your gut microbes are a reflection of your diet, your habitat, and your gene evolution, right? And here we have the picture, right? So we have the molecule, which is here. And these molecules are what your gut microbe, which are bacteria, use to communicate with your actual physical body. Gut microbiota and the brain communicate through electrical neural signals and chemical hormone signals. The vagus nerve, which is your cranial nerve. So remember before we talked about the cranial nerves that you have 12. The vagus nerve is called cranial nerve 10, right? It's involved in regulating your natural immune system, gut responses, and inflammatory responses to any infections or tissue damage. So where your body knows a cell's gone rogue in your stomach, then the vagus nerve sends that information so that way your body can actually do something about it. The vagus nerve can detect chemical signals from your microbiota, and changes to your vagus nerve signaling can impact your mood, your gut function, and even your immune system, okay? Your gut microbes, so your genes are regulated by innate factors, which is just natural factors, as well as sensing things from the environment. So between the two things, what's going on in your body on a natural balance and what's happening in the world around you, is how your genes then know what to do or what not to do. Microbes, right, microbiomes, microbiota, they have 100 times more genes than what we do. So sometimes it's called our second genome, right? So without us, they have their own genetic coding that's telling them how to function. but what we take in will affect how they're signaling, and that will then affect how they are operating in us and how our bodies are functioning as well. So the gene coding affects our coding because they produce things like vitamin B12, biotin, folic acid, right? And we require these things. So if their codes are off, they're not producing this, and then what do we see? We're vitamin deficient. We start seeing that we're lacking in certain things, and then we start taking supplements as a band-aid, a remedy to the problem. The supplements aren't fixing your issue because your gut bacteria are trying to tell you something's not right here. So it's not always enough to just say, okay, I'm going to Holland Barracks or whatever pharmacy or whatever to go and get what I need. You need to actually be saying, okay, if I'm low, what am I consuming that's telling my microbes, those that live inside me, to stop coding for this thing? We actually have to start looking at things on such a small level. So you actually have to know within yourself, okay, if this is what's going on and this is what the doctor said, sure, I can listen to what they have to say. It's not to say they don't have appropriate advice. But how am I going to go and change my diet? Start looking up foods to support your gut bacteria. And we have to understand, okay, what am I doing in lifestyle practices that even if I'm eating that, it might be counterproductive? Because some vitamins and some nutrients don't work well together. They don't complement each other. Yeah? So when your gut is stimulated, it communicates with your hypothalamus. Remember, we have the HPAA and the HPGA, and then this influences your emotions and your autonomic responses, right? And you can see it here. Your vagus nerve communicates with your brain, and then it just is communicating with everything else around you. So when we're looking at understanding the lower extremities of us and the lower chakras, we have to understand that whatever is happening down here is happening up here, is communicating. Whatever's happening up here is communicating down here. So you can't just deal with, you can't say, okay, I'm going to deal with that best friend that snaked me, but I'm ignoring the man that's causing me stress in my life, and I'm going to forget about the job because I need that money even though it's not paying me nowhere. Everything has to be dealt with, not necessarily all at one time, but you have to address it all. The immune system is divided into two. You have your innate immune system and you have the adaptive immune system. The immune system is made up of lymph nodes with hundreds of these nodes that live in your abdominal pelvic region, right? And this region then has its own extended plexus network as well. The intestine is the largest part of the immune system with approximately 80% of your immune cells found in your GI system. So they love to tell us your tonsils and your appendix are useless. I'm telling you that's not true, and you can research it. It's part of your immune system, right? Okay. It protects you. So oftentimes as children, it comes up flared a lot because we're prone to catching infections as children. Your body's adapting to the world. Your appendix is part of your GI tract immune system. So when it's taking in information, it's actually working. Now, sometimes they take it out because it's causing more problems and more harm. You have your innate immune cells, your adaptive immune cells. So your innate immune cells are the cells that are born with you. So whatever the state of your parents' immunity, they send that into us. And that's our innate immune system. Your adaptive immune system is the one where every time you catch an infection, you catch a cold, you get a virus, your body's adaptive, it's acquiring immunity. When we now have children, at the time of conception and gestation, our immune system, our innate one plus our adaptive one comes together to make up their innate immune system. And then they go out, acquire and adapt. Then they create a new baby, and then all of that information becomes them. So you are the information of those before you, plus what you are interpreting around you on an immune level, on a genetic level outside of your immune system. Your gut bacteria is dependent on, because it did say before, it's about genes and how you've evolved and your environment. Every part of you is not just you. It's about everything before you, the world around you, the universe's formation. All of it comes into play to make you and the next generation. So your intestine is the largest part of your immune system, with 80% of your immune cells found in your GI tract. So taking care of your gut, everyone says, take care of your gut, look after your gut bacteria. This is bigger than just having a flat stomach and eating good. Your literally your health depends on this part, because this part, your skin is exposed to outside, but your skin is outside for outside. Your gut is on the inside, exposed to outside every single day. It needs to be able to regulate itself, right? your intestinal immune system is exposed to more pathogens than any other part of your body. Your immune system communicates with your gut microbiota, and your gut microbiota therefore influence your health. The intestinal immune system has to be able to tell between food. It has to know what is pathogens. So when you get like the bug, some sort of GI bug, you're feeling sick. Foreign bodies, kids be picking up things, putting them in their mouth. Now they swallowed a penny and you're stressed out, right? And then microbial inhabitants, the bacteria that live there. So they have to know what lives here, right? They have to know what's eaten and what needs to actually stay and be absorbed. It has to know what is a disease that needs to be gone. And it has to know this isn't a disease, this doesn't live here, it's just something weird. Why did you swallow this? It has to be able to tell all of these things. So if we're not feeding it the way it needs to be fed and we're not looking after it, it's not going to know what the hell is going on. And then instead it's going to start telling you, oh, that's code for cancer then, because, well, we don't really know, right? Right? Homeostasis is just about balance. So us having this balance is about what you eat, how your bacteria are moving, and how the food and bacteria are communicating with your immune system and your electrical pathway, your enteric nervous system. All of this brings up balance. If anything of this, if you're eating next stuff, everything else is going to be off. If your body signaling is off because you're not listening to the information, you're not trusting that gut, everything going to be off. You can't bring anything out because you're not even paying attention to what information is coming in. So, the GI tract represents a direct portal to the molecular universe. You can look up this article if you desire, right? It's all about your enteric nervous, and that's a direct quote from them. The GI tract represents a direct portal to the molecular universe, because when you're understanding your GI tract, you're not understanding it in bigger parts, you're understanding it in its smaller parts, right? The purpose of your GI system is to sense and respond to internal and external environmental stimuli. The constant exchange of molecular information is a reflection of how your body uses the enteric nervous system to sense and respond to environmental changes, right? So that constant information that's being passed on is a reflection of your body communicating electronically to everything around you. And when you look at this picture here, right, you're able to see, if you consume turmeric, it goes into your stomach, your bile breaks it all down, and then it enters the cell. Remember, we talked about the cell channels, right? So it enters the cell, and when it enters the cell, it's gonna activate certain genes, maybe some enzymes, maybe some proteins get produced, and then your electrical system picks up the chemical information and sends it to the brain to do something. And then that helps your body. Now your body's like, okay, well, now we need to push this along to excrete it and everything. If you were to change this turmeric into a type of turmeric that's not real but is manufactured, how your body interprets that is different, because it's no longer turmeric. The chemistry of it has changed, so the molecules of that have changed, and so how your body interprets it is not how it's supposed to, because your body has its own blueprint. It's now have to adapt to that change, right? Does that make sense? So the gut-brain axis includes the central nervous system, your autonomic nervous system, enteric nervous system, and your hypothalamus pituitary adrenal axis. And it's all about communication between them and your central nervous system and your enteric nervous system. And then they link your emotional and cognitive centers with your GI functions, right? To create a whole understanding of what you're feeling, and this feels weird, this makes me afraid, or whatever it might be. Gut-brain axis disruptions can cause changes to your myenteric and submucosous plexus, and it can cause cellular changes within your GI tract, your endocrine system, and your immune system. So when we're understanding our historical perspective of where we are today, in what we're manifesting, how do we manifest abundance, we have to understand how are we even coded to manifest abundance. We're not, because World War I, World War II, capitalism, that's the continuation of colonial rule. Colonialism came first. Neocolonialism and imperialism are the umbilical cord to capitalism. If you cut off the umbilical cord, you remove neocolonialism and imperialism, there is no capitalism. Capitalism is the exploitation of black man, black woman, black child, black resources. It's still having your hand in the African Caribbean pot. It's still controlling them psychologically, spiritually, and getting their energy, their physical, spiritual resources to be used for their doing. World War I and World War II was not a world war. I said that before. It's the white people, the Europeans, fighting amongst the Europeans. They might be fighting against Eurasians. Africa was nowhere in this war. The Caribbean was nowhere in this war. We just got roped in. If you lot want to have some benefits, you have to. Or worse off, when we look at Africa, they forced the African people to get involved in the war when they were fighting. We didn't want to. They come and say, look, you're fighting. That's just what it is. So we have to understand that colonial rule still exists today. They've just painted the picture with new colours, but it's still the same thing. When we're looking at healthcare system, it is a blueprint for Western man, for European man, but it is our weakness. The weakness of the black man, the weakness of the black woman, the weakness of the black child. Because I'm sure we've all seen this BMI chart. Did you know that this was made by a mathematician? It wasn't made by a scientist. It wasn't made by a healthcare professional. It was made by a mathematician. So when we're understanding that this was made, first of all, by a mathematician, and furthermore, when he made it, he wanted to actually come in and he said, I want to know what the average person is like. I want to find the average person. All of his subjects were white men. White Western European men. Have you ever seen an Eastern European man, a Polish man? He looks a bit different from an Englishman. They're built different. Mm-hmm. They're still built different. A Russian man is built different to an Irish man. Yeah? And we have to actually acknowledge that when we're looking at their spectrum, why is it different for us? Because studies have found that a black man and woman have higher musculoskeletal bone density. Mm-hmm. Our very structure of our body is heavier than white people. So if you remove all the fat, I'm still heavier than them on a baseline, just how the universe put the things together to make me. Mm-hmm. So how am I abiding by a white man's composition to understand what is healthy for me? When we're looking at these pyramids, we have to understand, when we're understanding diet, food and nutrition, it's based on what the European needs, because remember, the European needs a carnivorous diet. Mm-hmm. When they were snowed up for a long time, there's no fruit, there's no vegetable, they had to be hunting animals, hunting. So when we're looking at these charts of health, it's healthy to whom? Even some of them don't thrive on these charts. But for the average man that is white, this is what he needs. The average black person doesn't necessarily eat based on this. In fact, I'll be inclined to say, if we're talking about the Homo sapien in his or her purest form, that 80% of this needs to be the green section. 90%. The whole plate really should be green. Get rid of everything else, the bleached food, because it's based, healthcare today in the West is based on the average white man.
Dr. Sadie talks about the diet of the polar bear and the gorilla.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
The gorilla lives in the tropics. It eats veg and fruits. Mm-hmm. The polar bear eats meat and it's in the cold.
It's completely different realities. So their whole diet for us, they know it's not good for us. However, capitalism needs workers. Capitalism needs people to buy into the system, and capitalism cannot have rebellion. If black people were eating in a way that optimizes their health and well-being, we would fight back. Mm-hmm. We would be aware to know I might die, but that's kind of the only thing promised to me anyway. So if I'm going to die somebody said I'd rather die free than live a slave. I don't remember who said that. Harriet. Most of us would rather live enslaved and die enslaved. So if we were to now come off this Western diet, recalibrate our bodies, forget about this BMI chart, because this is different anyway. You're asking me what would it be best. You actually have to find out for you. So
I do agree with that. I've always said to family, diet is so different for everyone. Mm-hmm. And I've realized that now, trying different diets, some things work for me, some things don't work for me, and it's just
everybody's different. Yeah. So there is general information that can be given to say veg is good, less processed foods. That's very generic. But even within that, you have to, on a personal level, explore for yourself. Cause and effect, there is a direct correlation between actions and events. The actions they took, and how we exist today. We're asking, how do we manifest abundance? What are you programmed to? What are you plugged into? How do you manifest more when you're living on the paradigm of less and lack from a people that were devoid of the light, devoid of creation, devoid of the creator, devoid of what was good? Mm-hmm. How? You start by deconstructing your reality. right? Your solar plexus is also connected to your mental body. So where you have your emotional body, you have your etheric body, you have your mental body, which is your third layer. And this is where all your thoughts, your intellect, your ego, consciousness, they're all there. And that's associated with wisdom, data interpretation, and thought forms, right? So remember your gut, we've gone through it. It takes in everything from outside, from your food, from the energy. It picks up on all of these things. If that information is coming in and it's translating to your thoughts, your brain to say, this is not a good thing, this doesn't feel right, this is misaligned, but you are ignoring the interpretation of data, you're not acting in wisdom. Those thoughts are there, but you're ignoring it to stay in alignment with the system that exists. You cannot build something new in the old system when the old system is built based upon you staying down. It's not gonna, it's not going to work, right? So
Where's your solar plexus?
So when we're understanding our mental body, we have to understand what thoughts are actually ours versus what thoughts have we brought in from listening to people speak, reading different books, from being in passing conversations around us, from taking in religious doctrine that may or may not resonate. What is around us that is actually our thoughts? Because sometimes you have a thought about what is real, and I will use religion as the example, where we are often taught religiously that there is one way to see things, and if it doesn't fit in that box, it is wrong. So if now I'm holding this session, automatically you've ruled it out. Not because you know chakras are wrong, bad, or evil, but because you've been told they are, and that thought sits with you. And so your body now picks up the information of chakras. It's now getting scared, you're now getting uncomfortable, you're now getting worried, you're now getting stressed by the very idea. You're not acting on wisdom. You're acting based on the blueprint of what you've been told to think, how you've been told to operate, right? And then you develop an ego around that. Said willpower, exercising your free will, having a connection and relation with yourself and having trust within yourself, manifestation, materializing those thoughts and ideas. So when we're saying manifest in abundance, what are you materializing in your real life? What thoughts and ideas are coming out of you to real life? Because people often say you get what you focus on. Because when you focus on that something, you're giving energy to it. And when you're giving energy to it, by the laws of electromagnetism, you're bringing that thing into your reality. You're bringing it into your sphere of existence, right? Abundance is awareness of your infinite state, your timelessness. There is no limit to you, right? There is no beginning and end to who you are, to what you are, to what you can do, right? When we looked at the beginning, we were talking about your energy not having a beginning and an end. When we looked at the electromagnetic field, and it said we are expanse. Your energy can communicate, electromagnetic energy can communicate far and wide. When you're aware of that fact in a factual matter outside of who you are, abundance doesn't seem so far-fetched. Because you understand you're an electromagnetic being, and based on the laws of electromagnetism, you are abundant. And so you have awareness of that abundance, and then you have to choose how you materialize your reality. The table only existed because once upon a time, one of our ancestors realized, I need a table. It didn't just come to be. The table started off first as a stone, and then they started saying, oh, I found a new sharp object, and this can file this thing down. And then it became with legs, and then we're like, hey, there's metal, and now we can use it to stand up. And it's evolved into different types of tables. If that ancestor never did that, we would not have any tables. I'd be holding, would there even be a laptop? Never mind anything else. So how are you materializing your reality, right? And your connection to the external, your gut feelings, being aware of your external reality and how you align. So just because you are part of that reality doesn't mean it aligns with you. You could be in this space listening and none of it aligns with you. Doesn't mean what I'm saying is not true, it's not helpful, it's not useful, but you're not in the space to understand, to understand what's being told. You are. And similarly, you could be taking information that does align with you, but you are rejecting it because it's making you question things too much. The same way religion teaches us not to question things. As soon as you start to question it, this must be the devil's work, oh my God. Not because that thing is not helping you, but because it's making you have to question who you are, your beliefs, your understanding, your mindset, okay? With your solar plexus, when it is blocked, it manifests in loads of different ways. So we have gluttony, overeating, we overindulge in food, right? We don't have any food discipline. You can't fast because your mind can't even conceptualize fasting. Like, what do you mean go without food? Like, nah, that's too hard, right? You have low self-esteem, and we see it. The community is trying to conform to Western ways in the way we wear our hair, the way we dress. Where is powerlessness, victim mentality, feeling like I can't do anything, the situation is like this, and a lot of our people sit there and say it's like this because of the system, we can't do nothing, we just have to find a way to work within it. Why does that have to be the choice? When you acknowledge your abundance, there is no powerlessness. I have the power, it's my energy, I choose how to use it. The inferiority complex of inadequacy, right? The spirit of comparison, that sits with you because you feel less than. Now, oh, but look at what he's doing, look at what she's got, look at how she's behaving. I don't have this. Do you need this? Do you even want that, or do you just want it because he or she has it, right? Yeah. And having no creative output, you don't even if you have the desire, you have the drive, you have the idea, you do not necessarily have the energy. If you consider when you go to work, you work your 9 to 5, your Monday to Friday, but you might really want to start this business, you just might not have the energy because work has drained you. So you cannot pour into creating something new because all of your energy and all of your resources in your body, mind and spirit have gone towards maintaining this other something, this system. Challenging the system doesn't always come with pitchforks and a madness. Walk away from the system. Capitalism is based on money and workers. If you don't spend in their system and you don't work for them, the system collapses by itself. If you choose to cut down and go part-time, or find a job that can accommodate you for part-time so you can manage your life, you have now changed how you're operating. You're no longer working on their paradigm. If you now choose, I'm not going to be living on this processed food, I'm going to actually go and eat healthily 80, 90, 99% of the time, or taking in beverages, they're highly nutrition. It's not just about buying that juice from the supermarket that is boxed. I'm going to buy my oranges and juice it myself because I actually know now I can't control how they were grown, but I've cut out a lot of the sugar and the processes that went. Because when you taste freshly squeezed juice and you drink carton juice from the shops, they taste different. So you eliminate the processes within there, and you're creating. You have to create an output. Creation doesn't always have to come from the big. I'm creating this big something. I'm creating a world and a life that fits me, that complements me. Exactly. The individuals make up the community, so the community will only change when the individuals tap in to that sense of self. The solar plexus is all about self. It's not always about us as a community. It starts with you. This is why the lower chakras is all about you as an individual, how you deal with the external, how you deal with what life puts at you, how you deal with those emotions, how you deal with the dislodging of your roots. If you cannot deal with you, you can't even begin to access the bigger picture, right? So when we're connecting this to the root and the sacral chakra, gut neurons send information through the vagus nerve to your brain and communicate gut feelings with the limbic system. The limbic system then influences your gut functions, and that's where you start to feel things like fear and anxiety, and your sympathetic, parasympathetic nervous system, your fight and flight, come into action. Gut microbiota imbalances can stimulate an overactive hypothalamus pituitary adrenal axis, and that promotes inflammation, right? So when your gut microbiota are picking up certain informations and your hypothalamus pituitary adrenal axis is taking in that information, they might be coding for inflammation in your body. But inflammation is the symptom. The disease is what you're feeding. You're feeding disease. The food that we're given is coded for disease. It's coded to make your body respond. That is the root problem. We're always talking about look at the root problem. Don't just put a band-aid on the symptom. Look at the root. You cannot bring forth more if your cells are doing less. You're not working to your maximum of your energetic capacity. So these things are not overnight. It's a day, it's a week, it's a month, it's years, right? Our gut microbiota influences your hypothalamus pituitary gonadal axis, which encourages. So a study actually showed that your gut microbiota influence how your hypothalamus pituitary gonadal axis work in children that are obese. So they did a study between 5 to 8 year olds, and what they found is that when your gut microbes are not really balanced, those children go into puberty at an early age, particularly if they are already obese. So your gut microbes are affecting, this is 5 to 8 year olds. Bearing in mind, generally speaking, puberty starts from about 8 to 10. 5 years old, you're already experiencing, and this doesn't necessarily mean the girls are having periods and whatnot, but it's about developments happening in their physical body from earlier on in age because of gut microbe, because of obesity, which is often linked to just parents wanting to buy cheap, quick and easy.
That's why they target that age.
Right, because if you already programmed us from 4, 5, 6 years old to normalize an unhealthy lifestyle, then it's harder to deprogram when all you know is abnormal, and abnormal is your normal. You get us before we're even realizing, and our parents are just like, yeah man, let me just go Iceland real quick. You want fish and chips today? It's fine, it's just another Tuesday. We don't even see it where we're playing into their game. You see? So that's why when we're saying manifesting, we are also creating the next generation's reality by what we're choosing to indulge them in. And I get it, sometimes it's cheaper, it's faster, it's easier, but that cannot be the 80% of the time. That shouldn't even really be 90%. 5% of the time is when we should be doing those things because we need to. We're at a critical state as a community where we cannot afford to be taking the lax approach. Too many things have been happening, right? You could be as skinny as a rake. If your gut is off, it doesn't matter how fat or skinny you are. Because remember, your immune system, a lot of it is here. Your gut is so, like, this is beyond just veganism and wanting to have a 6-pack ab and wanting to get glutes for days, and this is literally life and death, right? Gut pathogens influence our gene expression by stimulating your immune system and indirectly changing the genes that are either activated or deactivated, and that affects your body's ability to clear infection and get rid of the rogue cells. So when you take in bacteria and stuff and viruses that are not good, they can change how your genes are working. And then sometimes that will remain in where cancers are developing in the GI tract, because your body is not acting in a way to shut these things out. And that's leaving us vulnerable. So we're seeing there's increased numbers of cancers and diseases and all kinds of things in our community is because we do not understand our gut. So many of us are in a bad gut shape. You will see people in the gym lifting up 250 kilos, screaming till their lungs want to pop out. But a lot of them have got a terrible gut. You want to say something?
No, I was going to say one of the things that I talk to people about when they come here to ask about health and nutrition.
Yeah.
The first thing I ask them is, how's your bowel movement? What's your gut like? What's your diet like? That's where most of the diseases come from.
Yeah.
And illnesses come from.
Yeah.
So
when you're blocked and you don't have a connection to self, but you are external, you have a superficial connection, you don't apply wisdom. Because the flesh doesn't do wisdom, it just does what it feels like, right? When you look at the Quran, it says, basically, this answer says, don't change what God has made. But most people don't understand that. So we're making all these changes, but to our own detriment. God has created the heavens and the earth in just proportions and has given you shape and made your shape beautiful. Meaning God made you the way you're supposed to be made. The way you are, everything about you, down to that random strand of hair, is supposed to be that way for a reason. You don't have to understand the reason, you don't have to see the reason, you don't have to know the reason. There is a reason for it all, right? But when you are blocked with yourself, you're not connected with yourself, you then go against this. Ozempic is one thing that we're doing, but we also have cosmetic surgery. A lot of people are doing BBLs and face fillers, lip fillers, all of these sorts of stuff. One of the commandments, do not practice covetousness. Do not be desirable of what other people are around you are giving, are showing, right? Because that all comes from a place where of lack of self-confidence. You're not able to feel full in yourself. You see yourself as less than. So if we as a community, as a society, are trying to operate in a way where we are less than, then what are we going to get? A less than reality where we're always chasing, where we're always lacking, where we're always not enough. When you sit to eat with a ruler, consider diligently what is in front of you. Don't desire what they have, because what they have is deceitful. Don't work to be rich, because then you'll stop acting in wisdom. And you see that oftentimes you do things for the paycheck. It doesn't resonate with you. You think this is a bad idea, but it pays your bills. It gets you to what you need to do. And even when you're sitting in their company, we often hear about like conspiracy theories about certain celebrities, and a lot of them then die by suicide and whatnot because they were chasing a dream. They've got the dream, but at what cost? They don't have mental peace. They don't have emotional peace. Their money's not there. Exactly. Their money's not even theirs. A lot of them say, I don't own the rights to my music, to my artwork, because they've sold themselves because what they have presented looks glamorous. So when we're on unconscious spaces, we're looking at Hollywood saying, oh, that looks like a nice life. You don't know what this person, this is why I said, do not be going after what they have. Whose end is destruction, whose God is their belly, who mind earthly things. In the end, you'll be destroyed because you are only following what the flesh, what the external, your belly, your solar plexus is connected to the outside, what it's feeding you, what it's giving you. You're paying attention to the things of the earth, money, materialism, assets, right? You're paying so much attention to these things, you're only focused on what the external can give you, and that destroys you in the end. Nobody that has ever poured into the outside world has come out and said, I have peace and happiness. And the people that often think they have that, when they go onto the path of understanding thyself, they realize, I don't have nothing. I've never heard someone go down that path and say, yeah, I came out and everything had to remain the same. It's just not how it goes, right? When we're looking at it from capitalism, there is something that's called social Darwinism, which they say there is debunked and they don't practice it. I beg to differ, right? Because social Darwinism is the political economic theory that argued the poor were unfit and should not be helped, right? And capitalism has made food, healthy food, a privilege. Like, so they still apply this. We're looking at the system today. £100, if you're lucky, might last you a week of groceries.
Look at how much fruits cost.
Right. And in the same land, they'll be telling you it's illegal to grow trees and things in your garden. So they say they don't live by this. Yet nobody can tell me that's not true, because I see, we experience it, we all know it. Yeah. They've told you food, your basic need. When you look at the Maslow hierarchy of need that they created, food is a basic need. Yet they've made it a privilege for you. When we've got food,
and water as well.
and water, because even down to like back in the day, they used to give like restaurants and stuff, when you've got food for the day, you could give it out to the poor, and then they changed that because the poor were getting sick from food poisoning and going to sue you.
Something rubbish like that, yeah.
The poor man is broke. How is he going to sue you? What is that? So now we have to throw things in the bin. Waste.
And
right?
they don't want you taking it out because you've got certain groups that go around to like supermarkets
Yes.
and stuff, and they're banning that. I don't know if they banned it already.
They lock the bins.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lock the bins.
I'm seeing
They
them
lock the
looking.
bin.
I saw that. Like, what is that? Right? So capitalism tells you food is a privilege, and even if somebody wants to help you, they can't. They want you to just starve and die and be sufferable, right?
Yeah,
And when we look, exactly. So for neither, if we eat, are we better, and if we don't eat, are we worse? When we fasted, I'm not better or worse than anyone just because I can or cannot eat. That doesn't make you better than anybody for having the basic privilege of eating, right? Whether you eat or drink, make sure you do it with glory to God. Eating is meant to be a conscious act. A lot of the time now, we're overstimulated when we're eating. We're listening to something, watching something, reading something. What we should be doing is when we eat, we just sit in silence and just eat, because you're allowing the food to commune with you. The food is particles, we've gone through all of that, that is sending information to your body. But where we're already taking in disrupted food that is unhealthy and our body's already disrupted, sitting in that moment makes you start to ask, what am I eating? What am I doing? What am I spending my money on? It makes you sit with your DMN and actually reevaluate yourself, because you've gone internalized. A lot of people are not prepared to do that. They don't want, everybody wants to know, how do I manifest abundance? There's no other way than doing the work, making the there's no magic how. To bring in more, you have to choose to be more than what you are now. Is do so with glory of God. Give gratitude and thanks for the food, for the provisions, for the benefits, for what you have had, for what has come to you. So when you give gratitude, it lets the world know you're happy to receive more. A lot of people don't even pray when they eat. The food's just there, they just nyam it down. Praying, even when we're eating poor food, praying helps a lot to neutralize some of the poisons and the toxins, yeah? Autism and ADHD. Studies show that people with autism and ADHD often have lower gut microbiota diversity and gut imbalances. And this is included in reducing your beneficial bacteria, higher levels of certain pro-inflammatory bacteria. So there is actually a relationship between the gut and autism ADHD. Now, in our second session, when we talked about the sacral chakra, we talked about ADHD. On one level, ADHD is your inability to just sit down and focus and sit with yourself. You're not channeling on your DMN. You're too overactive on the outside world. But on another level, it's a dysregulation between your gut and your brain, your neurology, how your cells are communicating neurologically. Early use of antibiotics in children is also questioned to be linked to your neurodevelopment and the manifestation of autism. That's found from a study. I can't remember which study, I have it saved somewhere, right? But in the study, they were wondering, are antibiotics causing problems in our children that's affecting their development and is manifesting as autism and their inability to focus?